Alrighty, you guys. So, in this video, I wanted to talk about how cleansing and particular dietary alterations, in my own personal experience, have actually increased my psychic abilities to a large extent. And, when I was a meat eater, let's get out of the sun. There we go. When I was a meat eater, I was very unconscious. I didn't really have much psychic stimulation. And after my first full-blown Kundalini awakening in my early 20s, it motivated me. I was given a series of visions regarding certain dietary alterations that I needed to change and start living by so that I could increase the amount of Kundalini energy in my body and the amount of healing energy in my body. But essentially, Kundalini energy is healing energy. So, but immediately the following day after my awakening, in my early 20s, and that awakening came about. It happened due to the fact that I was holding myself in a particular yoga asana known as a shoulder stand, and it spontaneously awakened. And this is actually quite common. People who start doing yoga, every once in a while someone will get lucky and it'll start stirring the Kundalini energy at the pelvic floor. It'll stimulate the coccyx and it'll start to rise. But that's a rant for an entirely different video. I was given a series of intense visions, again, regarding dietary alterations and changes that I needed to make in my life. And the following day after it happened, I started applying these principles to my life. And I noticed that within the first 6 months, my consciousness had changed to such an extent that it made me an empath. And being an empath is kind of a double-edged sword, you guys, because it's easier to live in this matrix in a state of desensitization. It's easier to live in a state of hypnosis and not really feeling anything. Being ignorant to the truth of this matrix and the horrible things that happen here can make life much easier. So, a lot of empaths wish they weren't empaths, but due to the fact that I am one, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I wouldn't want it any other way. Being an empath allows you to feel the things that the unconscious masses can't feel. And it forces you to become more sensitive. It forces you to be more conscious. And being more conscious, enlightenment and becoming more conscious go hand in hand. Enlightenment energy through the arousal and stimulation and rising of Kundalini energy. Kundalini and being conscious go hand in hand. Kundalini will force you, if it rises, to become a more conscious, more compassionate, more aware human. And that's due to the fact that authentic Kundalini awakenings actually stimulate dormant parts of your brain and your physiology, your spinal system, your cerebrospinal fluid, you name it. And when that happens, it just enlightens the glandular system, it enlightens the tissues, the cells, everything. And you experience reality through that lens. You experience reality through the lens of you becoming more activated, physiologically speaking. The pituitary becomes heavily stimulated and activated through Kundalini. The hypothalamus, the brainstem, the pons, the amygdala, the reptilian brain, medulla oblongata, the right and left lobes of the brain, through Kundalini, they become one. The schism between the two gets bridged, and you experience reality through the schism of the left and right lobes of your physiology, the male and female. They unite. And in alchemical circles and in occult circles and mystery schools, that unification of the right and left lobes of the brain, the divided aspects of the self, the fragmented self, when they unite, it's referred to as the lovers uniting. The male and the female aspects of yourself, and you become the androgynous human that is now experiencing reality with the divided, fragmented aspects of your physiology and your consciousness unified. So, but again, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent. I wanted to rant about Kundalini, I wanted to rant about how certain dietary alterations in my own personal experience have actually made me more empathic and much more in tune with my psychic abilities. And essentially, Kundalini energy is what bestows psychic abilities onto an individual. And we can stimulate Kundalini by changing our diets, by getting grounded to the earth, like I'm about to do right now, and receiving free-flowing electrons. Excuse me. When you ground yourself to the earth, you guys, you receive negatively charged electrons through the bottom of your feet. And there's just so many different ways that we can change our lifestyles so that we can begin to experience a more psychic physiology and awareness. So I'd say the one thing that has changed about me the most in relation to psychic abilities through dietary alterations is the fact that I can usually read people's minds very well. I can finish sentences for people before it comes out of their mouths. I can read people's energy heavily. I can sometimes predict the future quite accurately. And I'm just much more in tune with my body. Not only is changing your water supply and your diet going to make you become more conscious, but it will indeed stimulate psychic abilities. But these things have to be adhered to, and they have to be utilized for a long period. You can't just become a vegan and expect yourself to become psychically inclined. No. There's a right and there's a wrong way to do everything, ladies and gentlemen. So I'd say the most profound effect that a dietary alteration had on my own experience physiologically and my consciousness is getting on distilled water. And the constituents found in the tap water, or even filtered water, are actually mind-numbing, physiologically damaging constituents. And these constituents are known as accumulative poisons. They accumulate over time, and they get lodged in your tissues, they get lodged in your kidneys, your liver, you name it. And once that happens, they're not easy to get out. And once you get plugged with this stuff, you now experience reality through a toxified physiology, because you're plugged full of accumulating poisons, excuse me. So, people ask me all the time, how can they become more psychic? How can they start having more vivid dreams? How can they become more empathic? How can they get more in touch with their consciousness in the spirit realm? Through diet, ladies and gentlemen. Dietary alterations are probably the most righteous things that you can do here in this matrix at this point, in this slave reality that we live in. So we can indeed change our lives drastically through changing our diets, becoming plant-based, getting off all the animal flesh, and just living a more righteous life by doing so. And all the hormones, antibiotics, and vaccines and animal meat are other hormone disrupting, immune system destroying constituents. So a lot of people are against vaccines, but they eat vaccines in the meat. These vaccines disrupt the proper electrical conductivity and movement of the chi through your body. So as a vegan, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that this diet is superior to a vegetarian diet, although you will need to supplement with certain things, B12, iodine, you name it. You can find these constituents in massive abundance in Aphanosomnum philosophica blue-green algae. But it just so happens to be that that's a very expensive constituent, but you can supplement iodine with Lugol's iodine, topical iodine, nascent iodine, you name it. Iodine is an essential constituent that most Americans are lacking massively. I'd say that just about 99% of Americans are iodine deficient. Iodine is a mineral that actually feeds the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland can be considered somewhat of a master gland because it regulates, stimulates, and works with the pituitary gland, the pineal gland. It regulates metabolism, and there's just so many different functions that require iodine to take place within the physiology. And there's a reason why most foods on the market are iodine deficient. The Matrix wants you to take their iodine supplements, which are garbage. The Matrix wants people to consume kelp to get iodine. There's a huge disinformation thing right now going on around kelp. Kelp is not a efficient way to get iodine, in my opinion. No, it's filled with radiation. Most of the kelp is not harvested in a salubrious, righteous manner. It does damage to the earth, you name it. I'd say Lugol's iodine is probably the easiest and the cheapest way for you to begin supplementing iodine, but you need to be careful with it because it is a rather harsh constituent in relation to the fact that it will unload your thyroid. Iodine, the research shows that it's probably the best way to actually get the halogens out of your system, the bromide and the fluoride. So, just a few little tips. I've kind of gone off on a few different little tangents. Here in nature, grounding myself to the earth feels super good. I hope this video can help inspire you or motivate you today to go out and get some grounding on for like 15 minutes. It's essential, you guys. Grounding reduces inflammation. It feeds the consciousness. Your feet, the meridians on your feet, communicate with the telluric kingdom, the electromagnetic fields that permeate the Earth's surface. So the Earth essentially is like a giant electron donor, a giant electron communication device, and you will not receive electrons if you wear shoes while you walk barefoot on the Earth. That's why they put a soul in your shoe. There's symbology and there's a mind control agent to the fact that they call the sole of your shoe the soul. Your foot actually communicates with the information from the telluric kingdom, the electromagnetic energy, the negative charged electrons of the earth. And when you wear shoes, you don't receive that. It doesn't nourish the soul. Most shoes have like 8 layers of rubber and different foam that electrons just can't pass through. So in order to receive electrons, you need to be barefoot. So that's another way to stimulate the consciousness and to stimulate the psychic faculties of your physiology and your consciousness. People who are psychic have phenomenon within certain parts of their anatomy, their physiology. There's a rocket being shot. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys can see that. But, certain people who have remarkable psychic capacity and talent, if you look at their brain waves under, they've taken groups of psychics and done studies on their brains, and certain parts of their brains are highly stimulated, such as the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, the pons, the amygdala. The amygdala essentially is your reptilian brain, the brainstem as well, but the amygdala is what sends you instincts in times of danger, so that you can, how would I put it? The amygdala perceives harm before it happens, and it sends instinctual energy through your awareness so that you can attempt to make the right decision when you're posed with danger. For instance, if you're on the freeway and someone's about to run into you as they change lanes, your amygdala might be able to sense that and send signals to you and help you do what needs to be done to save your life. But again, psychics that have been researched, certain parts of their physiology are highly stimulated, and we can stimulate these parts of our physiology naturally through dietary change, by getting on clean water, by eating more chlorophyll, and taking foods high in minerals like the blue-green algae. But I'm going to talk more about this in an upcoming rant. Kundalini energy actually stimulates every single part of the human body, the physiology. Once that happens, you become a wand for the divine, and with Kundalini energy, you can see events 10 years down the road that will actually happen. And once Kundalini energy moves through you, you are never the same. It changes your life forever through the opening of the door of life, essentially. And the door of life is the door that's been locked. We've had sorcery put on us that keeps our Kundalini energy moving through our chakras. It's a little cold out here. My breath is a little short. But again, this is all real stuff, you guys. We live in a science fiction novel, to say the least. Another rocket. And in my opinion, the most beautiful thing that we can do is take care of our health, because through proper health we actually experience upgrades to our physiology, and we experience upgrades to the consciousness and the mental faculties. The mind becomes sharper. I noticed that a vegan diet makes me a lot calmer than if I'm eating dairy. Certain mundane tasks that ordinarily would bother the shit out of me, they're easy. Again, the creative mind is hyperstimulated on a properly consumed vegan diet. The studies prove that a vegan diet is the most effective way of reversing heart disease, diabetes, cancers, senility, you name it. But it has to be done properly. A vegetarian diet will have miraculous effects on your health as well, but the dairy's filled with cholesterol. There's a lot of torture still in the dairy products, but it is a great way to start if you're still eating meat. But yeah, it's amazing the research that's been done on veganism and how it affects the heart massively, the blood pressure. You know, when you're eating a vegan diet, you're not consuming cholesterol. Cholesterol is one of the most damaging aspects of a standard American diet. So by default, if you just change your diet to a vegan diet, you're going to get rid of the cholesterol. It's going to help your blood pressure. It's going to help your heart. And by doing that, I mean, you're regaining your health. And by regaining your health, you can now approach becoming more psychic. Because health and psychic abilities go hand in hand, because real health is Kundalini, and Kundalini is the activation of every single dormant part of your brain. We as humans right now, we only use about 1% of our brain, 1% of our heart capacity. We have no toroidal field stimulation, no Merkaba stimulation, no nimbus stimulation, no higher thinking. We've been separated from the angelic kingdoms. And in a state of Kundalini Christ consciousness, you are surrounded by the angels. You can actually communicate with them, touch them. You can visually see them. So, the evolution of man will be the re-enlightenment process of Kundalini. And through Kundalini, we stimulate every single aspect of our physiology that's lying dormant. But I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you for watching this video, you guys. And I hope that it benefits you in some way today.